Sweet, stinky speed. Let's be honest, it's one of the things all car enthusiasts live for. But that pesky speed limit, what a buzzkill, right? The fact is, speeding is the most common law broken in the US, with almost half of drivers saying they've exceeded the speed limit by 15 miles an hour or more in the last month.
Was I speeding, officer?
I mean, on my way over here to the studio to film this very video, I was speeding. But so was everyone else on the road. So it begs the question, do speed limits actually do anything? Many states have asked that in the past few years with wildly varied results, and it turns out one of the biggest opponents of higher speed limits isn't the police. So buckle in and let's get started quicker than you can say.
The need for speed.
Now, as an American, obviously I want to ignore the rest of the world and just discuss US data. But there's one of the best examples the world has ever seen for this very subject, just sitting right there enjoying a beer and a brat. The Autobahn. Primarily championed by everyone's most popular time travel assassination target in 1933, the Autobahn is a network of over 8,000 miles of federal controlled access highways in Germany, not dissimilar from our own highway system in the US. The Autobahn has become a concrete haven of automotive freedom. It's most famous for having no speed limit on 70% of its network, denoted by this sign right here. The fastest speed ever traveled on the Autobahn was in 1938 by racer Rudolf Caracalla, who went a blazing 268 miles an hour. Later that day, another racer named Bernd Rosemeyer tried to break the record and died during an attempt, which doesn't look great for the speed limits don't matter theory. Also in 2009 on the A2 near Hanover, the Autobahn was the site of a 259 car pileup. The number one cause of accidents on the Autobahn is speed. Number two, tailgating. Tailgating done by people who want to speed. On the surface, that might make it seem like a speed limit would prevent deaths, but actually less than 10% of fatal accidents in Germany happen on the Autobahn. As a matter of fact, that 259 car pileup I just mentioned, it shockingly resulted in 0 fatalities. Plus, when you compare the Autobahn's numbers to US numbers, they're all in metric. What the hell's that about? The Autobahn's fatality rate is 2.7 deaths per billion kilometers driven, while the US rate on highways is almost doubled at 4.5 fatalities. But it's not just the lack of speed limits. There are a couple other factors that go into making the Autobahn so safe for drivers. One, driver education and traffic laws are much stricter in Germany, with a focus on reckless driving and lane discipline, like only passing in the left lane. But while stricter driving laws may contribute to road safety, the biggest reason we see such a difference in the US is infrastructure. Germany spends roughly $625,000 per mile on the Autobahn's upkeep, while the US spends about 10% less. And that difference really grows when you look at how that money is spent. Yep. That patented German efficiency is on full display when it comes to Autobahn maintenance. For starters, they have high upfront costs as they tend to invest more in long-term road quality, and this reduces the long-term expenses. The Autobahn is paved with concrete, whereas here in the US we opt for the cheaper, less durable asphalt that results in needing more repairs and resurfacing over time. Simply put, maintenance in the US tends to be reactionary and not preventative like in Germany. But aside from the costs and practices of proactive maintenance, the US relies mainly on state governments to handle the roads in their jurisdiction as they see fit. There are common requirements set by the Federal Highway Administration, but different states have different priorities on how to spend that money, which means that the quality of the roads can change wildly as you cross state lines. So, with the lack of highway continuity between states and a tendency to save now and spend later, the Autobahn seems much safer than our own highways regardless of speed. It also explains why the height of German engineering may be the diesel engine and ours is duct tape. The German Autobahn might have less fatalities than the American highway system, but that doesn't mean an American Autobahn is a good idea. And yet, across America, speed limits have been steadily rising for decades. As unbelievable as it seems today, there was a time when the US federal government successfully established a national speed limit. In 1974, highway speeds were limited to 55 miles per hour in an effort to conserve energy during the oil crisis.
Speed limit, 55 miles an hour.
Environmentalists estimated this would reduce fuel consumption by over 2%, which honestly hardly sounds worth it. In reality, fuel consumption only dropped by less than half that. What did drop almost immediately was the number of fatal crashes on highways. So the national 55 miles per hour limit endured in most of the country until 1995. After that, it was repealed by Congress to give states the authority to set their own limits. And what happened then? Highway fatalities continued to drop until reaching a 40-year low in 2014. Of course, cars themselves also got dramatically safer over that time, and some have argued, including police, that raising speed limits is just updating the law to be more in line with how people are already behaving in the real world.
I promise you, I'm doing the speed limit.
It turns out it's surprisingly tricky to directly connect speed limits with overall road safety, especially on highways and major arterial routes. Which brings us to how states come up with speed limits in the first place. It's not a random number they just pull out of a hat, even though it seems like that sometimes. States actually set speed limits off of what is called the 85th percentile rule. Basically, engineers do a speed study on a particular stretch of road using radar guns and those little pneumatic tubes you see laying across the street sometimes. Yes, that is what those are for. The engineers determine the speed at or below which 85% of drivers naturally travel while in reasonable driving conditions. Pretty simple. Drivers pick a speed based on the conditions, engineers set a speed limit based off of that driving speed, but then tell drivers not to exceed it. So while you would think that speed limits would actually be going down, the fact that they're going up proves just how many people break this law all the time. But then you have to wonder, if half of drivers are already exceeding the speed limit, does increasing that speed help alleviate some existing problems? Several studies would in fact agree with you. It turns out the real safety risk isn't necessarily higher speeds, it's speed variability. That means the difference in speed between the fastest and slowest car on the road. We see this in racing all the time. WEC hypercar racing is partially as dangerous as it is because there are also much slower GT3 cars on the track at the same time. Whereas NASCAR cars are all roughly doing the same speed, so they can drive real close to each other, and they almost never Okay, maybe NASCAR is a bad example. But speed variability isn't just about obstacles and reaction time. There's also psychology to it. Higher speed variability causes tailgating, which leads to road rage, or lane changes, which makes congestion so much worse, potentially leading to more aggressive driving. Research by groups like the Federal Highway Administration and the Institute of Transportation Engineers shows that increasing the speed limits can actually reduce speed variability and road rage
Nothing, just an incident.
Road rage incidents that lead to unpredictable driving environments without significantly impacting safety. That looks like a win to me. If everybody is speeding, it's a lot safer than if only half the people are speeding, which we already know they do. And there's also an economic and environmental positive. You've all looked down at your MPG reading and noticed that it's worse when you have to accelerate. If you're able to maintain a constant speed, your overall fuel economy is better and emissions are lower. If you have to keep braking and accelerating due to speed variability, that person camping in the fast lane is actually causing the stack of cars behind them to burn more gas. So it's settled then. Speed variability is the real enemy, not actually speeding itself, right? If only it were that easy. It turns out that when you take speed variability out of the equation and everyone is driving the same speed, there is still a negative effect to raising that speed. And that's because speed variability is not just about the difference in speed between you and another car, it's also the difference in speed between you and that stationary thing at the side of the road, be it a signpost, a tree, or a person. As Jeremy Clarkson once said,
"Speed has never killed anyone. Suddenly becoming stationary, that's what gets you."
Because of this, one of the biggest opponents by far to increasing speed limits is insurance companies. Big shocker, right? The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety conducted a study in 2019 that looked at speed limit increases across the US between 1993 and 2017 and found that for every 5-mile-an-hour bump, the fatality rate increased by 8.5%. Much of this can be attributed to the increase in stopping distance at high speeds and less reaction time afforded to drivers because of it. Now granted, technological advances have decreased the average stopping distance over time. Things like anti-lock brakes and better materials and tires have been shown to reduce stopping time by 10 to 20% each. But the rules have to be written for the lowest common denominator, and not every commuter is running Continental tires. Today's video is brought to you by Continental Tire. Listen, I know how it is. Tires are the last thing on your shopping list. But finding the right set, that's a game changer. Suddenly your car rides better, handles better, and gets better mileage. If you want a quality wreck with a high mileage warranty that'll last you years, check out Continental True Contact Tour 54s. They're designed for great traction in dry, wet, and light snow conditions on passenger cars, crossovers, and even EVs. That's because Continental's EcoPlus technology combines minimal rolling resistance with extended tread life, so Tour 54s can carry you further with fewer gas station or charging stops. Find more details and your local dealer at continentaltire.com. Unfortunately, it's not just the insurance guys that don't like speed. It's the environmentalists as well. Studies from around the world have shown that reducing speed limits has a direct correlation to a reduction in CO2, NOx, and particulate matter. When the US did a counter study on increasing the speed limit, the trend continued as emissions rose accordingly. So even though, like we said earlier, holding a consistent high speed is better for emissions than constantly accelerating and decelerating, holding a lower speed overall is even better. Look, it's really smart for the analysis of speed limits to be done assuming that people are not gonna follow the laws, but it doesn't make sense to write the laws themselves that way. The speed limit is designed to keep the worst drivers on the road somewhat safe, even if we all know we can go a little bit quicker. Although I do like the German method of focusing more on reckless driving and lane discipline than actually punishing speeding. That's kind of how it works here in California. Pretty much no one drives the speed limit, but you only get pulled over for it if you're driving like a jerk. So do speed limits work? It depends on the context and what exactly we mean by that. Speed limits do regulate the flow of traffic and provide a barometer by which we judge safe driving. Lower speed limits, provided people stick to them, do reduce injury risk in crashes, make surface streets safer for pedestrians, and can lower emissions. But that caveat is key. When a speed limit is too low, at least as judged by the majority of drivers on a given road, it can also make traffic more chaotic, more congested, and raise the overall chance of a crash by increasing speed variability. Ultimately, speed limits do more good than harm when they're set correctly, as annoying as they might be to someone like you, an excellent driver with total confidence in your abilities. When they're not, keep your head on a swivel. I think there's more to be gained from starting to combat speed variability. We've all heard someone say that driving too slow is just as dangerous as driving too quickly, and it turns out that is true.
Must go faster.
I would say that we need to implement a minimum speed limit as much as a maximum, but as we've already established, Americans take the number on the sign as just a vague suggestion.
Just do the speed limit.
That's all for me. I hope you guys liked this video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more, and I'll be back in 2 weeks with another story. Thanks for watching. I feel like I'm saying that funny. Endured.
Say it again.
Endured. That's not, what is it?
It's the ending of the video, is what it is.